See, I think every startup goes through its own journey. The S curve, as they call it, a focus on a simple principle, which is called customer as a mentor. Startups fail because of essentially implosion and not so much of what is happening outside in the market.
Hi, we are here for a quick podcast with Mr. Amey Mashelkar. He's the head of JioGenNext, and I'm extremely privileged to have an opportunity to speak to him today. Hi, sir. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Great. How are you? Thanks for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
So, I would like to, being an inquisitive startup founder, I would just wanted to understand how you got into this space of the world of startups and maybe your story of associating with GenNext, which became later JioGenNext.
Sure. So I joined Reliance in 2007, and prior to that, actually, I was doing my own startup in the financial services space, and that startup got acquired by another brokerage house.
Okay.
And after that, I decided to. I was very excited with the idea of innovation in the ecosystem, and also working on new ideas in the Reliance Group, and such an exciting place to work as well. So
one of the best places in the country perhaps today.
Absolutely. And I've been there now almost for 17 years, so yeah, it's
like
very,
home now.
very exciting.
It's a second home.
Yeah, every day there is something exciting happening in the company. So yeah, that's where I started my journey, and it started with looking at how we can drive internal innovation in the company. Later on, we started a corporate venture fund to invest in startups. And then following that, we started a corporate accelerator, which can mentor and support startups in their growth. So that is a program that I've been running. It's called JioGenNext for the last 9 years or so.
And you invest majorly in the finance space because you had a prior background, or you are more into, what sector do you more majorly target in?
We look at startups more broadly. So as you know, the group is in multiple business areas. We look for technology startups that can meet a certain need, solve a certain pain point.
So there has to be a problem statement.
Yes.
Innovative. That has an innovative solution then.
That's right. It has to be innovative. It has to be differentiated. It has to be something that the startup is building in a very unique way, and that's what gives the startup traction within the company.
So tech is the major player today anyway.
Absolutely. And AI is the major tech now.
AI has taken over.
Yes.
An off-side question. So AI, typically we have seen around in the conclave as well that there were a lot of subjects they tailored around AI, tailored around unlocking global potential. So we have got different OpenAI today. We have got Google coming up with some offering. We have Microsoft that has anyway invested in OpenAI as well. So what do you see as a next potential for country as in India itself? That do you see an emerging ChatGPT kind of a thing coming out from here that can be at the same massive scale that people, ChatGPT, it was less than 5 days and it was adopted by millions of users, ChatGPT. So do you see something like that coming up from India very soon?
Certainly, I think we have all the potential and the capabilities in India to build something very, very large. From India, specifically from a startup point of view, we are seeing very interesting applications of generative AI. We are seeing how startups are reimagining enterprise software with AI now, right?
Primarily with AI, yes.
Primarily with AI, and I think that is going to be really disruptive because it will get into potentially all functions and businesses at some stage. So yeah, obviously, that is the way things are going to go in any case.
And I was going through a website, so I came across the MAP that you have, the market access platform. So I wanted to understand what benefit it could accord to the Indian startup ecosystem today, and what has been the journey so far for in terms of the value add or in terms of the major startups that are as a part of the JioGenNext MAP platform today.
Sure. So MAP stands for Market Access Program.
Okay.
The idea is to provide early stage technology startups access to the market via the Reliance ecosystem, right? And we focus on a simple principle, which is called customer as a mentor. So when a startup comes and pitches
Reliance
that idea
actually
to us,
it's
our duty to not just evaluate that idea, but also to help the entrepreneur think through how that idea could be better and it could be implemented at scale.
And then it's a POC or one of its implementation is also done within the RIL ecosystem.
I mean, that is something that we certainly look at very seriously, but that is not the only goal of the program. The main goal of the program is to mentor and nurture startups.
Get the startup from one point to the other point.
Exactly.
That is on a larger scale.
Exactly. And to understand what a customer like Reliance requires and thinks about. Right?
Because when you work with a brand like Reliance, who has got any and every business out there today in the country, so probably that is the right step I think the founder could take to get started. Even if it's an MVP, I think I could read that you also get started with a company that has got an MVP.
Yes. We can start at a very, very early stage. I mean, finally, startup is a reflection of the founders. And if the founders, we find that they have certain capabilities.
You are at least investing on the founder, not on the brand, because brand is something that he is building today.
Yes. So, I mean, that's really essentially what the market access program
you
is
see some challenges today, because we have been talking, as I mentioned, for the unlocking global potential. So if I talk about the Indian startups today, we have got so many unicorns today. There are a lot more unicorns as well. But do you see some challenges that may come in or that are present today as well in terms of the vision of going global or the vision of the Indian startup ecosystem in general?
I think challenges are always going to be there. They will only change in nature. Building a startup is full of challenges in any case. But I feel that, and this is something that I talked about earlier today, that setting up the right culture in the organization right at the start amongst your team members. The foundation block is extremely important. It's even more important than the problem that you're trying to solve.
I mean, if your core is strong, then probably that's how we laying foundation stones of your house as well.
Absolutely.
If you lay it well, it is for years and years. Ancestral
so core values are important. Culture is extremely important. First principles thinking is extremely important. Knowing what you want to build and the market that you're operating in is extremely important. And I feel that all this can be solved in 30 days. You don't need more than 30 days to set up the foundation for your startup, and then you go about actually implementing it later on.
And what about a founder himself in general? I mean, because when there are so many reality shows out there today who have adopted or who have showcased the startup ecosystem today with the current scenario of the Indian startup market, be it Shark Tank or be it any other reality shows. So we have seen founders ranging from we were talking outside about the younger kids and children who have now come up as young entrepreneurs, to the elder people, even in senior citizens who are coming up with startups as a second innings of living their life once again. So probably what type of founders do you usually work with, if I may ask?
These are mostly technical founders, obviously with sort of understanding of how business works. And if they don't have a complete understanding of how business works, especially things like finance, etc., we help them with that. But primarily we look for talented technical founders who are solving some really hard problem. And I feel that as far as reality shows are concerned, I think it's only helping the cause of encouraging more and more people to do startups and building awareness.
And motivating them to get started.
I mean, think about it, right? I mean, today, even parents are sitting at home and watching Shark Tank, and they can see that young people in their 20s are doing startups and are being encouraged.
They are being encouraged, that's right.
To do startups.
And not only them, the parents themselves. I mean, we see a lot of, there was this lady that day the other day who had that Atta thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So she shared her journey on the reality show. So
absolutely. People of any age.
Age are today coming up from India. So I mean, at the same time, when you see people collaborating, because it's very easy to get started. Okay, if you know each other, then you become co-founders and you get started with a dream, be it a problem statement or be it a dream.
Yeah.
But then at a later point in time, we have seen a lot of Indian startups are today on radar, where people are exiting, one of the founders exit, or perhaps you see that the core team structure that was envisaged on the day zero is no more the core structure, even while things can adopt and they can take a different shape. But when we see a core person leaving, so what ideologies change within a startup, or does that mark that the startup would now go through a bell curve or some kind of a scenario? Or
see, I think every startup goes through its own journey. The S curve, as they call it, right?
Right.
But I feel that startups fail because of essentially implosion and not so much of what is happening outside in the market, right? I mean, that also obviously is a big factor, but fundamentally, if the founders are committed in the long term to build a business over the next 10, 15 years, 20 years, right? I think everybody can build a sizable business. I mean, if you just have that kind of, the
roadmap and the vision.
Roadmap and vision. But unfortunately, what happens is that startups implode because, maybe founders have a different vision of the company. Maybe there are personal reasons why they are not able to continue on that journey. Any number of things can happen that journey. And that's the unfortunate part and the hard part to deal with, right? But yeah, I think that, and that's why I think culture and, core values should be understood at a very, very early stage before you go ahead.
Yeah, because we often come across these stories that people were chasing the growth or valuation rather than making the business out of it, because there are a lot of startups today out there who took that route and then probably they have deviated and now they are on a alternate path to creating a value business in terms of actually revenue coming up. So what is the current scenario, say for 2025 or say 2027, that is a few years from now? Will this scenario slowly eliminate because rather than having non-performing startups with high valuations, it is finally we are procrastinating a termination or a terminal stage of that startup, is what has been the notion around.
I think there will be a reset.
There will be a reset.
And it will be a good reset.
Okay.
And I think the founders that I'm interacting with today who are just starting out, they're starting out with some very clear ideas about what they want to build and why they want to build it. And very early on, if you start thinking and talking about the right value system you want to have in your organization, then I think nothing can disrupt you in the future. So things will change, and we are very young as an ecosystem also.
That's right. It's a daily, continuously evolving ecosystem that is taking its shape. Be it an inspiration from the world that is already in a better shape today, or perhaps coming up with their own way of making space for themselves.
Yeah, and there have been 2 or 3 cycles maybe of the startup ecosystem over the last 15-20 years, largely happening over the last 5-7 years, right?
This I think began from the .com bubble. That was one of the known state, at least for people from my age. What we know, the .com bubble was the first startup boom that came up, where people were coming up with websites or the .com domains for themselves.
Yeah. So there's a lot of learning from all this that has happened over the last 20 years, and I think that learning will be now put to use in more meaningful ways.
And what about the government incentives and schemes that we have for startups today? Because even when we, I may not be aware about all of them, but considerably, about the DPIIT or perhaps the tax saving scheme that we have for startups who can save their tax for 3 consecutive years in the journey of, say, 7 or 10 year span. So even after all these schemes, we see that most of the Indian startups are today headquartered either in Dubai, Singapore, England, or maybe Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, KSA. So how can we keep that within the country? Do you believe that there could be a vision to having the Indian startups stay within the country rather than headquartering outside, or what is your own perspective on this?
See, I feel that each to his own. The founders have to ultimately decide what is good for themselves and their business. But I fundamentally believe that the startup has all the opportunities today in this country.
In the country itself.
And doesn't need to really leave. And you can have a global market. You can have presence in other countries, closer to your customers. But it does not necessarily mean that you need to move their lock, stock and barrel. And I see a lot of founders saying to me that, look, I don't want to move. I want to be
I'm one of them.
You're one of them, right? Exactly.
I don't want to move.
And that makes me feel very proud, actually.
No, and what about considering the due diligence aspects that we were talking about, or perhaps the pitfalls for a startup in terms of the maybe any unethical practice, or in terms of any other thing. So we have observed that there is a supposed funding winter that has come up now, that people are trying to pull the strings and they are trying to refrain from very high investments, and we have heard about the in the Tiger Global or any other investment platforms where we have seen that people are now, they are SoftBank, for example, they are also the revenues or the numbers that they are in terms of losses. So do you see this scenario improvising somewhere, or do you see that maybe there could be some amendments to the due diligence process today that could help align stuff, or maybe that is something missing today which is causing so many edtech, very renowned edtech startup, for example, is today suffering the valuation issue today, where they were extremely overvalued and now they are on a ground zero. So what could be the right remediation here that could amend this and that could mitigate such kind of risk, so that the Indian startup ecosystem has a bolstered or stronger ecosystem in general? So
I think this is a very, very complicated and a long subject. Requires like 1 hour of podcast by itself. But I think like I said earlier, there is a lot of learning from what has happened in terms of whether it was miscalculations in some areas, or even some of the dynamics in the industry today due to what's happening around the world. So things are changing. So I don't think there is one dimensional reason why.
There could be multiple dimensions. There are in fact
dimensional, and I think ultimately organizations that are committed to the startup ecosystem will come back, will continue to do the work that they're doing. Only thing is that I feel, like I said, there'll be a reset where people are talking about value and not valuation.
Yes.
So.
And what about the role of any accelerator or any incubator in this journey, in terms of, there are people who directly seek funding, but there are certain who are looking for growth. So platforms like JioGenNext or any other platform that you would suggest, or any type of founders perspective that you would suggest, that in order to not seek a funding but seek a growth approach so any mentorship kind of opportunities that you would like to talk about?
I think and this is a very important subject. I feel that founders start companies in markets that they don't understand fully sometimes. Not all the times, because they are so driven and they are so passionate about the
passion. They are driven by the passion.
So I feel that it's really important to have very early on a mentor or an advisor who comes from that domain.
Subject matter expert,
like a subject matter expert who can help you think through all the nuances of that market. And I don't see founders doing that as much as they should be doing. Right? They will always have on the board, apart from the founders, probably the investors who are also, who have invested capital and therefore they are on the board of the company. But you need to invest your time and energy in finding the veteran of that industry
veteran,
and bring that person on board, make that person a part of the board. And involve in the decision making, because you can unlock many opportunities. One, you can get connected to a lot of people in that industry. Second, you can learn a lot in terms of pitfalls, what not to do. Right?
What not to do, because he's a veteran, so he would highlight the ones that should not be done rather than what could be done.
And I think that is more valuable than money, to be honest.
Because that's the real learning here. That's the real earning as well, learning plus earning.
Absolutely.
You're earning the knowledge that would retain.
Absolutely. So do that in your first 30 days.
Again, the 30 days model that you always connect the dots on.
Yeah.
It was a great chat with you, and I'm looking forward to having another insightful conversation very soon with you.
Sure, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for hosting and
thank you. I made for this opportunity for this podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.